You're listening to America's Health Talk.
I'm third, which, you know, third means totally not special. I have an older brother and an older sister and 4 younger sisters. I know more about women than I want to. But growing up, my dad called me a maverick. Because going like how everybody else went just wasn't my thing. And when he called me a maverick, it was clearly to him not a good thing. Does anybody else grow up like that? Where you're not fitting quite right? If we forward to 1972, that's when the draft was still going on, and they drafted you with a lottery number. So they put all of our birthdays into the hopper, and they pulled them out. July 19th was 19, which meant, bye, see you later. I hope you like green. And I became an infantry medic, which is where my love of medicine was born. But shortly after, doing maneuvers with infantry soldiers, I learned something about myself. I don't like sleeping in the mud. And the idea of being shot at, I just didn't like it. And so I'm fairly bright, and I figured out how to get myself retrained as an X-ray technician. And I love that. And our professors used to always say, how do you know unless you look? And so that's when my love of imaging was born. So imaging and medicine. So fast forward to 1979. I'm now a second-year medical student at Oral Roberts University. I just got married to my childhood sweetheart, who when I was 18 and got sent off to Europe, we broke apart. She ended up marrying someone else who abused her. And when I got into medical school, I called her mother, who was a special person to me, to tell her I'd gotten into medical school. And I found out that my sweetheart had been separated. And you never love anybody like your first love. It's very special. Of course, and then until you marry them. And then you realize that your memory wasn't quite as good as you thought it was. 2 months after we got married, she tried to kill herself. And I'm frightened and horrified and bring her to the chief of the Department of Psychiatry at Oral Roberts University, and I fell in love with him. Why? Because I realized that if he helped her, which he did, it would not only help her, it would help me, and it would help our children, and subsequently even our grandchildren. So I fell in love with psychiatry because I realized it was a very special profession that had the ability to change generations of people. So I'm passionate about what I do. So if we fast forward to 1991, I go to my first lecture on brain SPECT imaging. SPECT is a nuclear medicine study that looks at blood flow and metabolism. Dr. Jack Paldi, he's the one that gave the lecture. He said that SPECT is a tool to help psychiatrists get more information on their patients so they can make better decisions. And I'm sort of excited about that because in that one lecture, my 2 professional loves, which was imaging and psychiatry, came together and quite honestly revolutionized my life. Over the next 23 years, my colleagues and I would build the world's largest database of brain scans related to behavior, now over 87,000 scans on people from 111 countries. So we're really excited about combining imaging for psychiatric issues. On the screen, you see 2 SPECT scans. This is a healthy scan. SPECT basically tells you 3 things. So it tells you areas of the brain that work well, areas of the brain that are low in activity, and areas of the brain that are high in activity. Got that? So good activity, too little, or too much. The image on the left shows the outside surface. Now these are blood flow maps of the brain, if you will. Healthy scan, full, even, symmetrical activity. Color doesn't matter, it's the shape. The image on the right, blue is average activity, red is the most active parts of the brain, which are typically in the back bottom part of the brain. Why? Cerebellum has half the brain's neurons. Okay? So here's an image of a healthy scan versus someone who had 2 strokes. So it's not that hard to see, right? The holes are areas of severe decreased blood flow in the brain. Here's an image of someone who has Alzheimer's disease, where the back half of the brain is deteriorated. Now, the thing that is really upsetting when you understand imaging in Alzheimer's disease is Alzheimer's disease starts in your brain 30 to 50 years before you have any symptoms. So this person, who I'm showing you, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease at the age of 59. That means that her brain was likely deteriorating in her 20s. So those of you that are waiting to get serious about your health because you don't want to get Alzheimer's disease, now would be a really good time to start. Those of you that think you're going to get well after you lose your memory, forget it. Because by the time you lose your memory, it's not early in the illness, it is late in the illness. Here's an image of someone who had brain trauma. Your brain is soft, about the consistency of soft butter. Your skull is really hard. Your skull has many sharp, bony ridges. Mild traumatic brain injury, as you'll see, is a significant cause of psychiatric illness, and virtually nobody knows it because very few people ever look at the brain. This is what drug abuse looks like. When I first did imaging, I was the director of a dual diagnosis unit, it's a psychiatric hospital unit that takes care of drug addicts, and their brains just look so awful. And after about the 15th patient who had an awful-looking brain, I started collecting them, and I took them home to my 4 children. And I effectively induced anxiety disorders in all 4 of them when it came to drug abuse. And on their mom's side was a very severe history of alcoholism. And I'm like, if you never drink, you're never going to have a problem. If you drink, it's like playing Russian roulette. And I'm really happy. My 3 adult kids have never had a problem with substances, even though it's genetic, right? The big lie is your problems in your life are because you inherited them from your mom and dad. Genes account for about 30% of the healthcare problems in our country. About 70% of them are because of your bad habits. Did I say that?
You're listening to America's Health Talk.